are facing the most significant crisis of our lifetimes because of President Trump's justified trade actions and his threats to our sovereignty. Our response must be to build a strong economy and a more secure Canada. President Trump claims that Canada isn't a real country. He wants to break us so America can own us. We will not let that happen. We're over the shock of the betrayal, but we should never forget the lessons. We have to look out for ourselves. We have to look out for each other. We can have a new Canada built by us, for us. We can give ourselves more than any foreign can take away. And the best way we can deal with this crisis is to build our strength here at home and help people who will be hit hardest by these tariffs. That's the right thing to do. That's the fair thing to do. That's the Canadian thing to do. That's what makes us strong.
So the Canadian Prime Minister there, speaking of the deterioration of the relationships of the U.S. and Canada, who have had a great rapport in many ways for many years, is just deteriorating. Like I said, just falling apart, and it's a trip to see. And there's so many levels to it and all that with the tariffs and what Trump and his administration is doing. Hit the comments with your thoughts on all that. In regards to Canada, the U.S., the mass tariffs, what you think eventually will come from this, and what you've noticed as far as any effects on prices and whatnot thus far on different items. But something else that just happened that's pretty wild to me in regards to the Canada and the United States is involving the borders. As you see, Canadian government is warning its citizens about traveling across the border to the US of A about these search of electronic devices. Now, this is pretty wild here. There's a doctor, a highly respected doctor who went to school in the US. She worked in many important fields within the medical industry as a doctor, organ transplants, all kinds of stuff. Her work has saved many lives, and she's a big loss, if you ask me, from what it seems to me. You know, I'm no expert in regards to all this, but it seems like her being up out of the country, deported, a sad loss for the world of doctors. And you'll see her colleagues are feeling it as well.
Yeah, well, the administration is celebrating tonight because they say she admitted to openly supporting someone they describe as a brutal terrorist. But here today, people who know her say that she's just a doctor working to serve thousands of patients here in Rhode Island and in southeastern Massachusetts.
Hands off our doctors now!
Tonight, hundreds of protesters gathering on the steps of the State House in Providence in support of Dr. Rasha Alawi and against her removal from the country.
This was a racist political attack on her culture, nationality, and religion. Shame!
The Brown University professor was detained by federal agents when arriving at Logan Airport Thursday after visiting her family in Lebanon. Customs and Border Protection questioned Alawi, who admitted she attended the funeral of Hassan Nasrallah, a Hezbollah leader the U.S. calls a brutal terrorist. Agents also found photos of Nasrallah on her phone. Tonight, the White House posting this photo on social media, accompanied with a statement from Homeland Security saying, quote, glorifying and supporting terrorists who kill Americans is grounds for visa issuance to be denied. This is common sense security.
Our client's in Lebanon, and we're not going to stop fighting. We're going to try to get her back in the U.S. to see her patients where she should be treating her patients.
Alawi is a kidney specialist at Brown Medicine. The director of the organ transplant division at Brown attended the rally tonight.
Rasha is the sweetest person. We have never had an issue with her in any way. She's an outstanding physician, outstanding person. She's a pleasure to work with, and we were horrified by this entire event.
Now, a federal judge in Boston ordered immigration officials not to move Alawi, but Customs and Border Protection say they didn't get that order until she was already on the flight back to Lebanon. By the way, two of her attorneys today dismissed themselves. They were originally representing her. They withdrew from this case. We're live here.
The government of Canada has updated its travel advice for anyone going to the U.S., warning of the significant discretion American border officers have. That's when it comes to deciding who enters their country. The CBC's Tricia Kindleman has been following this for us today, and of course, travelers listening very closely to this. What do they need to know?
Yeah, so not necessarily new rules at play, but it does seem like there is some newer applications that we might be seeing with these rules. But it's definitely important for people to realize just sort of how much discretion those border agents really do have. So now, again, this website with official advice from the federal government does, suggest that U.S. authorities are strictly monitoring these entry requirements and enforcing them, and that it does include scrutiny of electronic devices. Now, the advice from the Canadian government is to comply and be forthcoming with all interactions with border agents, and they say if you are denied entry, you can be detained while awaiting deportation. Now, we have this graphic here that sort of gives us an idea just how many people are actually have their electronic searched, rather. Now, it is just a small percentage. You can see that number there, just 0.01% of travelers who go through secondary screenings, which can include that electronic search. So it's not necessarily been a high percentage, but again, these are 2024 statistics that we're seeing there. So the relationship between the two countries has changed a little bit, and people do believe that that is sort of what's leading to this increased scrutiny at these border crossings. Now, we're also hearing from immigration lawyers who are saying that they're getting a lot of inquiries from people, and they do have a few pieces of advice.
I think it is a great idea to take a burner phone, to not take your technology, to not take anything on your technology that you would be afraid of any government entity knowing or having. Might you be detained at the airport? You might be detained for questioning, but you can say at any point, you know what, I don't want to travel anymore.
Now, one other piece of advice was if you are flying out of Canada, doing that border check in the Canadian airport does prevent then you being on U.S. soil if there is any sort of risk of detention or anything like that. So again, a lot of questions, more questions than answers. Marianne, it seems to be sort of the norm lately, but travelers definitely suggested to do their due diligence before traveling into the U.S. right now.
All right.
It really feels like a shame that this had to happen and go this way. But ain't that a trip? That all came from this new search of electronic devices where crossing the border, you see that they're warning, Canada's warning its citizens going over to the US of A that the border officials have the authority to search travelers' electronic devices, including phones, laptops, tablets, and all that. And they don't have to provide any type of reason. And you can be detained, locked the fuck up if you don't give them your passwords. And they're also talking about to have the items, the devices on airplane mode, because there can be some kind of, I don't know what it is, if it's spyware or some kind of cloud stuff that can be downloaded onto the device. And you see in this instance, they saw that these were recently deleted pictures of this leader in Lebanon, where she's from, who passed away, who the US of A looks at as a terrorist. Now, I'm not up on the happenings in Lebanon and their leadership, and if that is indeed accurate or what, you know what I mean? It kind of reminds me of some stuff that I heard back in the day in regards to individuals from Cuba, but it's just wow, the way that this all went down, that they saw she deleted these photos and then said, wait, well, what's this all about? Oh, you went over there, bam, we're deporting you. You support this individual, you're gone. get the fuck up out of here. And you see too, I didn't know if you caught that in there, that there was some kind of appellate court judge or whatever who issued like a stay or whatever, kind of similar to like a stay of execution, but obviously we're not talking about execution, we're talking about deportation here, that she was ordered by that judge to be held at the facility and not sent back, that there was going to be more court proceedings to follow to determine if that should be changed, the decision. But they just deported her anyways and said, hey, we didn't get that order until it was too late, which I personally don't buy that. But it's pretty wild. You see, it says it urges Canadians to expect scrutiny when crossing the border and warns that refusing to comply involves risks, including device seizure, travel delays, or the denial of entry for non-U.S. citizens. Under U.S. law, Customs and Border Protection, also known as CBP, agents may demand passwords to unlock devices during inspections. Travelers who refuse to demand risk having their electronics confiscated and may face long delays. And, you know, this lady is gone. You heard everyone saying what a great woman she is. You know, they miss her, and she went to Brown and has done a lot, just well respected in her field of medicine, you know. But this has went to Supreme Courts already, and they upheld the authority of border agents to conduct these warrantless device searches, citing, quote, border search exception to the Fourth Amendment. You know, a lot of people view this as invasive or flucked up, and I personally want to know how it all goes down. Is there some kind of AI device that mass scans the devices and, you know, tries to figure out what type of stuff has been deleted recently, or what kind of content or files people have in their phone? You know, as they were talking about massive amounts of people crossing the border. Like, I would imagine if they do it on a large scale, there has to be some kind of like AI doing this. Or is it a situation where they're just singling out individuals like, hey, you, I want to know what's on your phone. I want to know what's on your laptop. And they just go through it manually, or what? You know, like, what do y'all think about this? Do you believe that this is invasive, or do you think that this is a good thing? Do you think that this is flucked up? What happened to this doctor? Do you guys think that this is something that is being put in place strictly for national security, or what? You know, like, some of the Canadian media that I'm seeing report on this is viewing this in a way like it's the US ishing on Canada specifically, like busting their balls, paws, giving them a hard time. But I don't know, is this a matter of national security? You know, should they have the right to do this? Hell, some people have been talking about in recent videos that I've done where things have been discussed about the future of policing. You know, there was a video on a totally different topic where there was a cop talking about proactive policing, trying to get ahead of issues before they happen. And some people are like, yo, this sounds like the Minority Report, or like whatever. You know, what's going to happen eventually? Are they going to be able to read people's fucking thoughts? And, you know, if you even have a thought up in your mind that they don't like, they can lock you to fuck up, or what? Is that where we're headed? Is this, once again, invasive, or is this righteous and something that should happen? You know, like this doctor, once again, I don't really know about the whole landscape of leadership in Lebanon and all that. You know, like, if this individual who passed away, you know, supported, if this individual is all the way flucked up like that, a straight up terrorist, or what? But it seems type flucked up that you know, she just happened to go back to her country and, you know what I mean, grew up over there, and just as having respect from where she came from, wanted to attend the services after the death of this individual, right? Like, do y'all think that's twisted? It's not like they're alleging or saying that she was some part of some type of group that, you know, had very radical, violent beliefs and ways, and, you know, were dangerous. I don't know. This is just really something here. And like I was saying, with all this stuff going on between Canada and the US of A, it really has me like, damn, you know, these two countries had a lot of love for each other for so long, for many years, and now you see all this going down. It really makes you wonder, makes you think, is it going to be straight up beef or get even worse? Because like I was saying, this isn't just individuals talking ish about the other countries or things like that. Like, this is being pumped out mainstream wise over there by many people in parliament or politics, all the way up to, as we just saw in the beginning of this video, the fucking prime minister. You know, like, he's like, man, basically, in layman's terms, Trump and the US of A are on some bullish, you know? So there you have it. US and Canada's relationship continuing to deteriorate. Mass tariffs continue to be pushed out there, angering other countries, not just Canada. You know, that's not the only place. And when it comes to that too, in other instances, countries have been talking about there being a tariff war, so to speak, that they're gonna try to make it as difficult as possible for the US of A to, you know, get certain imports and exports, dealing with them, like make it really hard and charge them a lot. And that's just really going to translate for things costing the American people more at the end of the day, right? I mean, that's already happened from my understanding in many ways. And then this border stuff as well is just wild. Not even just speaking about the US and Canada's relationship, just that is a part of law enforcement. And I wonder if that will become something that we see within law enforcement in the US of A, you know, with security and searches and police. You know, well, they want to get up in our devices, right? We already know the NSA was looking at stuff like that, but is law enforcement going to be trying to build cases on individuals, you know? And or do you think that that's a good thing, or do you think that that's wild and invasive? Like, let's discuss it all in the comments. It's Coffee signing out, y'all. Peace. Don't forget to subscribe.